What's going on YouTube? Today we're back in the garage and we're going to be doing some rod spec measuring. Got my new rods here from Jeremy Allen, the man, the myth, legend. His brand here, this Optimum brand, but they're essentially, they're exactly the same rod as what it had in it. They're the 7/16 X beam steel rod. Very strong rod, as you saw in how it acts through my entire block. So we're gonna be here, we're gonna be doing some measurements, show you guys how to measure rod bearing clearances, and get to the good stuff. We got this awesome K24 crank from Jesse Fletcher. He works in a machine shop and they build motors, lots of Honda motors. And I asked him if they had any K stuff. He goes, oh yeah, we got all kind of K stuff. And picked out this beautiful K24 crank for me. Also balanced it. He also lengthened my keyhole and he cut the end off for me. So he hooked me up pretty good with this. I really appreciate it, man. Big shout out. And I already checked the rod journals and wrote them up here. And look at that. They're right on the money, every journal. My last K24 crank had a couple of tenth differences, 1 or 2 tenths, which isn't horrible, but it does make a difference when you're doing bearing spec clearances. But having it right on the money like this, we're gonna have the exact same clearance on every journal. So it's gonna be awesome. I did not do the mains yet. The mains are down here. I'm gonna show you guys how to get those mains. And what we're gonna do, we're gonna play around with a couple of different bearing sets. So I have some ACL race bearings. These are good bearings, really, really good bearings. I ran ACL 5, 6, 7 years ago. Some other stuff, never really had problems with them. But then when King came out with their PMAX coat stuff, I started running the King PMAX coats and been doing that ever since. And honestly, all the bearings are good quality. They're all race bearings. I did talk to Jeremy. He thinks in his experience that Kings are slightly harder than ACLs. Go both ways with that. That's good for a race bearing because you do want a little bit of give. You don't want something digging into your crank. And since we're running the amount of power we run, bearings are going to wear out. And this kind of horsepower, it's just going to happen. And especially the rod bearings. My main bearings look pretty good, but the rods get chewed up and there's nothing you can do about it, especially on a 4-cylinder. You can go to aluminum rod, but then you're just changing out aluminum rods. So bearings are cheaper. I can get a set of bearings pretty cheap. And I don't mind dropping the pan and changing out a set of rod bearings on a weekend. So we're going to mic up and spec the different rod bearings. It'd be cool to see the differences in clearances. We have standard and we have X bearings here. And I think the Kings are X, I believe. So we're gonna kind of compare everything, write it out on the board and show you guys what everything specs out. All right, so first thing we're gonna do, we're just gonna kind of clean up the rod a little bit. I'm going to use just some WD-40, white cloth.
It's got like an oil coating on it, and I just take some WD-40 and just kind of clean her up. WD-40 is good at many things. It is a kind of a solvent cleaner. It also will help produce corrosion or rust because it's an oil, and it's really thin, so it's a good product. So we'll just go around, we'll kind of do a nice light little coat over the entire rod. So these already have some lube on them, ARP, Molly Lube. And then we'll just clean the inside of the bearing channel here. You gotta clean where they mate pretty good. You can't have anything crazy because it needs to be nice and flush. And remember, you guys are checking your rod bearings. You have to torque these up to spec. So whatever the torque to spec is, you got to go to that. If you don't torque it to spec, you will not get the same crush on the bearing, which means you will not get the same reading on the bearing. Now we're going to apply some fresh lube to these. We'll leave that lube that's on there. So, first thing, let's go. What do we have here? So we have some...
All right, so we have a set of standard Kings. So these are standard clearance Kings. As you can see here, it has the STD on the rod there, or yeah, on the bearing. And this also has the STD on it, off. And we'll go ahead and set that bearing down inside there. And we'll do the same to the cap. So these are King standard coated. Of course, these are Ks because we have K rod journals. Go ahead and set that one in there as well. There we go. Also remember, guys, I haven't done this yet. I probably will, but some rod manufacturers will have a number stamp or something on the side of the rod, so that way you can tell, because you can't mix up the rod ends and caps. These are a matched hone set, and you always go tang to tang, okay? So you want to make sure that you don't screw these up. And what you can do, you can take a Sharpie and you can write on here like 1, 2, 3, whatever you want to do. Right now I'm just making sure that I only work on one rod at a time, so I don't mix up the caps. But once I decide what rod is going to go in what cylinder, I'm going to write 1 and 1, 2 and 2, so on and so forth. Go ahead and get some of our Ultra Torque ARP assembly lube. Some thick stuff. Put a little bit on the end there. And a little bit where the bolt head is going to go, because you don't want any type of metal to metal. This allows you to get a better torque. Go ahead and slide our bolts in. Hand crank them down. And then we're going to go over and put this girl in the vise. All right, don't mind the amount of mess behind here. When I'm in rebuild mode, the garage just kind of goes crazy. So a little bit of a mess, but anyways. All right, so these are getting torqued to 70 foot-pounds. We have tang to tang. I'm gonna go ahead and set this at my 70, but you wanna bring it down as one motion. So make sure your bearing goes down smooth, that it goes on the dowel smooth. If you feel any type of binding, you wanna stop, okay? So this is going down very smooth. Just gonna hand tighten them there, and then we're gonna give her a little bit more. And you're gonna go ahead and torque her down to 70. All right, there's our 70 foot. Next thing is you're gonna set your micrometer to your journal. So all of our journals are 188.98. So all we gotta do is come over here and go to 188.98 and set it. And there it is, 188.98. If you guys do not know how to read these, you got to learn if you're going to do engine building. So, all right, so we're set at 188.98, which is what all of our journals are. I already measured them. So now what you're going to do, take the rod out. It's just easier to go ahead and put this in the vise very lightly, okay? And you go ahead and take your bore gauge and go ahead and zero out your bore gauge.
It's a little difficult at times. I'm actually out of, I gotta adjust this real quick. I'm out of needle throw here. There we go. Alright, there we're zeroed.
Okay, so you'll take this out. You are now zeroed. Should have tightened this up while I was still on. Let's double check that we're zeroed out because this is gonna run for all our bearings. Okay, we are zeroed. And how you get that is, and why I'm kind of moving it back and forth, is because whatever the lowest mark of the needle, that's the tallest part of here, well, shortest part of here. So you need to kind of move the needle around so that way you're getting your most accurate up and down clearance. Double check this. We're still sitting on 8, and we are. So now you go ahead and put your, you don't have to do the vise. It's just easier for me to throw this in the vise and get your reading. Remember, you get from up and down clearance. And what you're gonna look for in this dial is you wanna see its lowest point, okay? So you see how it goes to a low point and then it starts back up. That low point is your vertical. That's as far as it goes. And it looks like we're sitting at 2.2 once again. That's exactly what we were last time on an STD bearing. So 2.2. So as you can see, I mean, you have your 100,000ths, right? And then every little dash, well, no, you got your thousandths, and then every little dash is your tenth. So that's 2 thousandths, 1/10, 2/10. Okay, so that's how this particular micrometer will work. All right, so now we have our King XX bearing, and we're getting 2.8 with a King XX. Right there's 2.8. So 2.8 with a XX shell. All right, now we have our ACL, and this is ACL's X bearing. So we put 2 X's in there. And I actually did not even order a standard ACL because I wanted to go right to the extra gap, the extra clearance. So we're only going to be testing ACL's X. 70 foot-pounds on the rod bolt. And let's see what she gives us. All right, whoa, look at that, guys. A lot more clearance than what King runs. 31. We got 31. Actually, almost 32. Yeah, that's more like 32. We got 32. 3 thousandths, 2/10 on a XX ACL. It's a good bit of clearance. Might have to order some standards. All right, so what I want to do now is I just want to kind of look at the differences between these two bearings. So this is our King PMAX coat. They got their black coating on them and a little bit of chamfered edges on the side there. Nice bearing. And then we have our ACLs. Oop. That's my mark from measuring. Won't affect anything, but they don't really claim that it's a coating on these. They don't say anything about it being coated, but there is some type of top layer coat that they also put on. There's just more of like a brownish look, but also nice chamfered edges, nice bearings. So they look, very similar to the eye. Here we have our ACL and our King PMax. So they're both nice bearings. There's nothing wrong with either one of them, but as you can see, they do have quite the difference in measurement. So you can't just say, okay, well, I want to run a X and just hope it's going to fit. Because as you can see, we have quite the difference between the two brands. So our King X is a 2.8 and our ACL X is a 3.2, so that's quite a big difference in an double X shell bearing between two brands. And down there with the standard, we have 2.2. So you could also mismatch. So you can also do an X and an STD half, and you'll fall in the middle. So if we ran a King standard with a King X top and bottom, we would probably fall in the 2.4 to 2.5 range. And with the ACL, I'm gonna have to order some standards because I do want to try the ACL, but 3.2 is a little large. I was trying to aim in more for the 2.7, 2.8 range. So I am thinking with an STD ACL and an ACL X, we're gonna fall in that 2.8 area like the King double X. So as you can see, looks like ACL, you get a little bit more of a range. So we're just gonna have to see where the standard falls. All right, so I had a micrometer problem. My little dial here loosened up. So I had some little fluke stuff. I kind of caught it because I was like, stuff wasn't making sense. So that's why when I do this stuff, I always measure 2 or 3 times to make sure that my measurements are, adding up correctly. Because you have human error and you have mechanical error. So, you measure 2 or 3 times to make sure you're getting the same measurement each time. So these are our final. As you can see, King is not a full 5/10. It's more like a 3.5. So as you can see here, with a standard and an X mix, we're getting 2.3.5. With full X, we're 28, and then jumping over to the ACL X, we're 30. So ACL is still 2/10 fatter than the King. And I just ordered some standard ACLs. So we're gonna check the standard ACL, and then we're gonna check a half and half. And I have a feeling this is gonna be the winner right here. It's probably gonna be real similar to the King X 28. So in my last motor, I had a standard and an X. So I was floating around 22 to 23 in my last motor. And I want to bump that up into the 26 to 28. So we're going to see what the standards are. I'm going to say standards are probably going to be like a 22 for ACL. It's my guess. 22, 23. And then I bet with the mix, we're going to be right around our target area. So that is how you mismatch your rod bearings to get a good clearance. So I figured I'd bring you guys in to a little closer look at the rod that I run. So this is Jeremy Allen's X-Beam steel rod, 7/16 bolts, very thick rod bolt, 7/16 ARP 2000s, big suckers. And I mean, you saw what this rod did to my block, and it was still in relatively decent shape. I mean, just take a look at
Look at it.
The car is not perfect.
Just look at it.
It's not like severely bent up. It held its shape for a rod that went through a water pump, an oil pan, or not oil pan, oil pump, and right through the side of the block. It went through the sleeve. You can see here where it hit the sleeves, chewed the sleeve up. But I mean, look at it. It's not even that bent. If you compare the two, So extremely strong rod. So I'm not gonna go away from these rods. Obviously, we had a bearing failure which snapped the rod bolts, but that's gonna happen to anything. So you gotta watch your rod bearings. But really nice rods. So these are what I'm gonna run. These are the long rod for the 2.4 crank. So these will be this for the F24. Okay, so the importance of looking over all your stuff. So you see the embedded material on that tensioner and on this one as well. Yeah, you don't want that. You don't want to put that back in your motor. Okay, so there's little bits of metal in there. They can dislodge. They can run back through your system, get back in your new bearings and your new motor. So gonna need new tensioners and new guides. All right, guys, so I just went ahead and mic'd the crank, and look at these numbers. I'm impressed. He got me a really nice crank here. So, and I double and triple checked these different angles of the micrometer. I'm getting a 66.2 on every journal, besides the center. And the center is the only one that doesn't have oil gullies. And I have heard the center sometimes is a little different than the rest, but it's different in a good way that it's 3/10 smaller. So number 3 will automatically have 3/10 more bearing clearance if all the shells are the same. So which is not a problem. A little bit more clearance, no big deal. We're most likely going to go with a standard bearing in the mains, because the mains looked pretty decent in the last motor, which were standard Kings. So we're going to see, I mean, obviously we see here that standard, well, the X Kings were actually a little smaller, so standard ACLs might give us just a hair more if they follow the rod bearings, which are a little heavier than King. So, but we're looking good here on the mains. So, yeah, really nice crank. Things mic'd out really nice. All right, guys, so importance of cleaning, especially after an explosion. So I went ahead and cleaned up the top end here. Got my pan, some brake cleaner, and I'm just brake cleaning everything up, cleaning the rockers, took the bars off, cleaned the bars, compressed air everything. You just want to make sure you're not going to leave any metal. And these are my really nice DC solid rocker arms. Reason I went to these is, one, they're very light. They're way lighter than the factory VTEC setup, and the car, I don't need the VTEC. I don't need low lobes. It's not I'm not looking for best miles a gallon, and also this prevents failure from happening. So a solid rocker, less parts to fail. You don't have to worry about VTEC not working. You don't have to worry about a pin getting jammed or broke or anything like that. So just a nice little upgrade if you're more of a race car, and these are just really nice pieces. So yep, solid rockers are going back on. All right, we're gonna clean our chains, and this is why you clean. Do you see the material coming out of the chains? So we're just taking brake fluid and we're just spraying out the chain, and then compress air it out. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna dump this new fluid. Well, I'm gonna be spraying new fluid, but I'm gonna clean this out and then spray it again and see if I have any more material. I'm gonna keep doing that until I get no material. All right, as you can see, no more material. Chain's clean. Well, guys, that's gonna do it for today. We got most of the top end cleaned up, so everything's bagged, so everything is ready to go. Really just waiting on the motor. There's a couple more lower end pieces we're gonna be cleaning up, junking the block, and we're just gonna kind of go through everything and clean up whatever we got left. But nothing really to watch, just a bunch of cleaning. So you'll see us back here whenever we get the short block back in, and we're gonna start assembling this F24 once again. Thank you guys so much for the support. I appreciate it. And if you guys have not ordered shirts or you want a shirt, let me know. They're right here, and we'll get you a shirt. So again, comment, like, and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next video. See you.